I just remember him mentioning the cereal. He's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be eating cereal. And I was just like, dude, come on. It's not like I'm not going to eat cereal. And I just remember him looking at me like, it was just like, it's like, it's just a simple decision when you really think about it. Like, nah, I couldn't imagine eating cereal every day. But like back then, I was just like, you got to have breakfast and you don't have like a whole kitchen or nothing. You're literally, so it's like, get cereal. It's easy. And I just remember him looking at me just like, idiot. Again, just that like thing of like how something simple, if it's outside of your pattern, seems like this, like, why would I do that? Like, why? I already have the way that I do things, and the way that I do things is the right way. You know what I'm saying? So like getting out of that pattern is hilarious.
Yeah, so whenever he follows Molotov Girl, he actually catches up with her, and he jumps through this portal with her whenever she's on her special mission because she's trying to find the evidence for the software. And he basically blows her cover, and they have to like transport back. And so she transports into her lair, and he's like, whoa, what is this place? And she's like, who are you? And she's like, you have to level up before you can ever play with me. Because he's literally level 1, and she's like, I don't even know what level. And she's like, you have to be level 100 before you can
Yeah, she's
start
like
working with me.
197. She's like super
Yeah.
high level.
Yeah, and he's like, well, how do I do that? She's like, the usual stuff. Rob a bank, steal a cat from old lady. Like, and then he's like, well, this is my world. These people are all I know. Why would I do something like that? And so he goes through this whole like mindset of like, I'm not going to do something bad. I'm going to level up the good way by being a great guy. He's like, I'm not going to be a good guy. I'm going to be a great guy. And she's like, okay, whatever. Go away with your virginity or whatever she says, something like that. And so yeah, that's exactly what he does. And he catches fire in the real world because no one has ever done that before. And so he's actually like stopping the bad guys from robbing banks, stealing guns, and doing the exact opposite of every other character. And so yeah, the real world is catching fire, which also catches the attention of the game owner, which in the game his name is Antoine, but in real life his name is Taika Waititi. And he is a hilarious character and very representative of real life CEOs and businessmen, in my opinion. But he's just like, this is the way it's gonna be, and I don't care about your small people opinions and like all this, etc. He's basically like super cocky. And
one of the best quotes he has, he's like, "You guys give me ball cancer, inoperable." It took me like 3 times to even get the joke, but it's just like inoperable. Yeah, it's totally fun. He makes like a bad character still likable. It's like, even though he's like the
villain.
Yeah, the villain, he's still like super funny.
Yeah,
like you kind of like funny. The guy.
But yeah, so it was so he takes the the original coding from Keys and Millie, and Keys in real life is Joe Keery. And so he takes their coding, which in their original coding was going to be like rainbows and like super happy, like mellow, like rainbows and butterflies type of idea. And then he altered it into that like villainous.
Well, theirs was supposed to be like a
open world.
Yeah, like an open world paradise.
Yeah.
Is what they had designed it to be.
Yeah, and he like altered it slightly, but still kept the coding. And I think that's why that there's like villains, and it's because he like geared it towards that. I'm pretty sure he had like admitted it. He's like, no one wants to play like rainbows and butterflies. They want to do all violent shit and all that kind of stuff.
It turned into like a GTA theme.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess you can do whatever you want in GTA, but the funnest things in GTA to do is to get as many stars as you can and run from the cops. So it's like that idea where he just promoted that.
Yeah, it's like, this is what people like. And yeah, they had this whole argument. It's like, I just took what people liked and rebranded it. He's like, why would I start a Turkey Albuquerque when I could do Kentucky Fried Chicken? It's like, people love Kentucky Fried Chicken. You give the people what they want. Yeah, like, that's so true. It's like literally what people do in this reality, and most people are unaware of it. It's just like the same thing, but different.
Yeah, well, so you hear that talked about in like podcasts and just like being a content creator. They call it audience capture. And it's this idea that an entertainer is hypnotizing an audience. When someone watches your video or you're performing an act, you're essentially capturing their attention. And you have to almost like mesmerize people to do that, right? You use like psychology, like hooks, visual hooks, attention gainers, like all this because you're trying to like steal their attention. Well, there's this thing where it has an opposite effect as well, where you're so addicted to catching people's attention that you're going to then do the things that you know are going to get you the most eyes or the most attention. And so in the same sense where it's like you can create a channel to create this vision of yours, but then all of a sudden you notice like a certain type of thing that you do goes viral, and then you start doing that thing more. And then you start creating content based on what gets you views because, in the long run, that's what gets you paid. And then the next thing you know, what you end up doing more of is far from what you started it for, right? So I'll give a quick example because you might be like, what the heck are you talking about? Like for my own channel, my Scotty P breakdown page has gotten really popular. But one of the main things that gets me viral is like breaking down street fights and stuff. Like people love when someone else gets knocked out or something like that. And I've done a couple of those breakdowns and those go by far the most viral. And it's like, I could easily just get on a street fight page and just like find all the street fights and then just do breakdowns. And I have no doubt that my views would just skyrocket. But then it's just like, at what point, what I'm even doing that for? It's like, I didn't get into doing breakdowns to break down street fights. That's whack. I want to break down MMA fights, high level jiu-jitsu fights. Now, are the high level jiu-jitsu fights going to get me as many views as the high level MMA fights or the street fights where someone gets knocked out? No, but that's what I want to do. So I have to, I'm constantly balancing of what goes, but what can I do that can go viral so I can get more views so that I can have a better chance of sustaining my creator page, but also sticking to what I want to do. Yeah. And be authentic, because at the end of the day, the second it becomes a job, you'll not want to do it anymore, so it becomes a thing where you have to keep that authenticity going so that you have enthusiasm and passion for it. And it doesn't become like this perverted thing, it's like no one wants to be slaves to an audience, it's like, even if it brings you maybe more monetary value or whatever, but that's like I feel like we've all heard that story before of like, fame's not what you think or blah, blah, blah,
That's like the importance of listening to the comments, but also not listening to the comments. Because there was like a super bad story about this guy who would eat. He did like a podcast on eating. And then basically people just wanted to see this guy like derail. And so they kept asking and requesting like more and more horrible things. And I'm pretty sure he ended up passing away from like obesity. But he started the channel like super healthy and super skinny. And if you see his journey, like he got so overweight and so unhealthy just because he was only doing it to gain views and stuff. And it's like, that's horrible. And it sucks that has to happen in some senses, but you need the extremes to understand balance. So yeah, staying authentic and to your passion.
Right. Yeah. What were we going over right before that though? Yeah, well, you said the person with the eating. Yeah, I've definitely seen some other things like that are similar to that too. Like sad stories of audience capture.
Yeah, we were talking about leveling up and basically how he needs to get to level 100. And I feel like that's true in a symbolistic sense in real life. Like you can tell that people are on different levels. They're in the same game as you. They're playing the same game, but they're definitely not on the same level as you. And we make jokes about it all the time. And it's like, we say that we're on the next level. But in comparison to all the levels, it's like, what level even is that, Like it's an infinite game with infinite levels. And whether you're slightly leveled up more than one person, that's in comparison so small to the mass majority. So it's like you just got to keep rising, and that is the goal, just to keep improving. And yeah, so in the game he eventually gets to level 100. He like pairs up with her, and then she's on this mission again, which he also needs Key's help in the real life. So he helps her to disarm the security system in the lair to steal the information to help her case in the real world. And so Keyes basically disarms it. And during this, Ryan Reynolds, blue shirt guy, he also is in there helping her. He like drives in with this crazy motorcycle and basically saves the day in this big heroic sense. And she like jumps on the motorcycle and she's like, "Is that a Glock in your pocket?" He's like, "No, it's 2 Glocks." And it's like this whole like hot scene. And then, yeah, after this thing, they like actually steal the evidence, and then they like drive out into like this crazy window scene, and there's glass flying everywhere. And I'm pretty sure they kissed, right? They kissed. It was either they kissed then or they kissed at a
They
different
don't
time.
kiss till later.
Okay. Yeah, but it's like they almost kiss type of thing. You could definitely sense the chemistry. And she like flies off with this crazy like wingsuit thing. And yeah, so they've built this chemistry now because he's helped her, and she's actually growing feelings for him, and she's not aware that he's even AI. She thinks that he's a real life character. And so he's like, "Hey, let's meet up for a date sometime." And so they go to his favorite spot, which is a spot that she wasn't even aware existed in the game because she's only aware of like the mainstream areas. And he takes her to this like offset beach area with a little ice cream stand. And he's like, "Hey, 2 with a regular." And he's like, "Yeah, it's my favorite. I know not a lot of people like it. Maybe some people think it's weird." And she's like, "Well, what is it?" And she like tastes it and she's like, "Bubblegum ice cream? Are you kidding me? This is my favorite." And they have this whole like love scene, and they're like catching feelings for each other. And did they kiss then at the ice cream? I'm forgetting whenever they kissed.
Well, no. So, and then he takes her to the swing. I think they kiss at the swing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and this is like you can tell that his and I've experienced this in real life. It's like where love sprouts new possibilities in your mind, and it's almost like it recircuits and rewires like pathways that weren't there and available before. It like lights up new ways of thinking. And this is basically what happens. And Keyes is still on this search to figure out who blue shirt guy is. And he finally eventually finds out that he's AI, but whenever he looks up his coding, it's like massive. And so he lets her know, and she's like, "Of course, the one time I fall for some guy, it's not even a real guy." And then she's like, "I let him kiss me." He's like, "You let him what?" He's like, "There's not a button for that." She's like, "He found the button." He's like, "What the hell?" And so yeah, they're like falling for each other, and then she basically has to break to Ryan Reynolds like, "Hey, this is all a video game," and she like walks him through the area where basically it's like almost like a break room area for all the characters, and like store. It's like an off scene area where he didn't even know existed. And he's like coming to his senses, and he's like, "Well, we have to do something about this." And she's like, "Yeah, if we don't do something about this, the whole game is going to disappear. It'll be like you never existed." And so he's like on this thing to fight for his existence, fight for his friends. And he has this whole like big scene where he gathers all the NPCs, and he's like, "This is what we need to do." And there's this one character with his hands up. He's like, "You're safe here. Put your hands down." He's like, "Ooh," he almost does it. He's like, "I can't do it."
Yeah, when she breaks it to him that he's just like he's not real, he has like a meltdown because she's essentially telling him that everything he knows is fake, and that he's like, as she's like breaking it down to him, he's like, "Oh wait, so because she's like, this place isn't real and I exist somewhere else," and then he's like, "Me too," and she's like, "No, you're an NPC, you're not real." And he's like, "Wait, so you're telling me and my friends and everything I know, doesn't even matter. She's like, pretty much. And he goes in this whole like spin. He has like this whole spin off where he's like super depressed, and really, she ends up making him upset, right? He like storms off because, you know, he likes her, but obviously she can't even be with him because he's just a robot. And so then he storms off and he's super upset. He's like, if nothing matters, then he's like, why should I care if nothing matters? And his friend, Buddy, who's a hilarious comedian, he like lets him know. He's like, well, none of this matters. Why should I care? Why should we try? Why should we do anything? And he's like, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. He's like, I know that you're my friend and that you're struggling and I want to be here for you. He's like, what's more real than that? And it kind of like just alludes to this idea that, you know, whether reality is real or not, because we have this idea of like simulation theory and, you know, what matters, what doesn't matter, is there a God, is there not a God? And Buddy just alludes to him. He's like, regardless of whether we're real or not, I know that right now me and you exist. And he's like, there's nothing more real than that to me. He's like, it's real to me. Our friendship is real. And it kind of just opens up Free Guy's mind to like be motivated again, that like, regardless of what's going on the outside, you know, it's like he still has his friends. He still cares about these people. It's like, just because maybe what you thought mattered doesn't matter anymore. Like the people that you are with still matter. So then that's what motivates him to kind of turn and be the hero again. And he rounds everybody up and they're able to, they essentially are able to find this hidden place, which is proof that they did have AI within the game. So the main protagonist, or I don't know if that's the correct word. I would say that the villain is trying to shut the game down because they're essentially pulling sales away from the new game. So he doesn't like that the older game is all of a sudden becoming more successful, more popular, because now people want to play it more than the sequel. And that's not good for him, not good for his company. So he tries to then delete the characters and delete the game so that they'll have no choice but to play the second one. And then he even finds out that it's AI, and he realizes the consequences of that, because then it would essentially mean that he did steal like these other two people's code and didn't want to pay him for it. And so now he's on a mission to like destroy the servers and delete everything so that the game no longer exists. And usually that wouldn't be a big deal. Like we delete games all the time. But if there's AI in the game, then it's like this huge thing of like, well, if we, you know, destroy the servers that the AI is on, is that killing consciousness? Like, is that a life? And so there's like this huge play on like, do we care about AI intelligence? And if we do, like, what does that mean for us as a society? So it's pretty trippy when you really think about it.
Yeah, and they were talking about this in our actual reality and how it's a possibility that AI will be integrated with video games. And if that happens, it'll be the exact same.